Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to be talking about how you may unintentionally be ruining all of the wonderful things you do as a husband by simultaneously being an asshole about them. So we will get to what that looks like after I tell you to subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode was just recorded and was about how over-responding when your wife touches you can actually have the unintended consequence of making her never touch you. And you'll get to hear about this with plenty of empathy for your plight as an untouched person, and many, many, many more subscriber episodes if you just subscribe. And separately from that, separate amount of money, $4.99, which is $1 less than the $5.99 for the podcast. For $4.99, you should join my Facebook group. If you like the topics I talk about, you'd probably like all the discussions in there. They're a lot of fun. All right, so a lot of guys that I work with in couples counseling, they are living really a nightmare where they have to do a bunch of shit work, but their wife also isn't happy. My God, why? Well, I'll tell you why. Not because their wives are horrible people, I don't like that victim perpetrator type of shit. And I try to help you guys to see that black and white interpretation, such as the man is good, the woman is bad, or, that shit doesn't ever, that's never right. So that's never the whole story. So what's usually going on here? What's usually going on is he's doing a bunch of shit work with a bad attitude. Right? Let's be real. That's how your kids do it too. So, it's like, and it's the same sort of thing for your kids, and it's a really good lesson to teach them. So, if your kid cleaned up his room, but he was like a total jackass about it, was throwing stuff around and muttering and had a nasty expression, it don't even really count that he cleaned up his damn room because he made everybody in the house so miserable in the process. So it completely detracts from the end product. Just the same as if you made a wonderful presentation at work or at school and you just gave it with such a nasty attitude that everybody hated you while you were presenting. It wouldn't really matter if you did a good piece of work. Now, men that are less emotionally aware and emotionally adept sometimes do have a lot of trouble with this. They think, listen, my wife told me to paint the basement. I painted the fucking basement. So why is she saying that she doesn't feel close to me? I literally did what she wanted me to do. And then it turns out, and she says, I say, how did he paint the basement? Did he do a good job? Oh, yeah, it looks good. Well, why aren't you happy? Well, the entire time there was lots of comments about how this isn't what he would want to be doing on his day off, about how I always want him to be, busting his ass on the house. We ought to sell the fucking house, and he hates the house, and we should be doing something else instead, and, maybe we ought to be doing something together, wink, wink, and why is he always painting the house and doing stupid shit like that? Well, why would she be happy? If she had wanted just a basement painted, then she could have hired somebody to paint the basement. What she wanted was for you guys to do this activity, we're all working on the house. I talked about this in my home renovations podcast that you should listen to. So it's just a man who's struggling with, that his wife won't touch him. You could say, well, why don't you just pay for a massage? You don't want to pay for a massage, just like she doesn't want to pay to get the house painted. Some women pay to get the basement painted, fine. So then it'll be something else. It'll be doing the laundry, or it'll be packing the kids' lunch, or it'll be whatever it is. Everybody has shit work to do. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are. You still have some level of shit work to do in the house. Just kind of menial labor. And if she feels that everything that you do, you have a nasty attitude about it, then you are literally putting yourself in the world's worst situation. She likes you even probably the same amount as she would if you didn't do the damn stuff, just because you are being such a dick about it. So if you're being a dick about it, there's usually a couple of reasons why. The first one is you're unhappily married, so you overall feel very upset about everything at all times because you feel that you are suffering and that she is not doing whatever it is that you want her to do, most likely sex, right? The other one, because you knew that one already, you knew I was going to say that, so that's some of it, but a larger and deeper issue is that you saw a very negative parent that was always just, bitching about everything and acting put upon and acting burdened and acting like everything sucked. And that could have been one parent, or if you were really lucky and you hit the double parent bingo, then it was both parents. And so if you grow up in this kind of a negative environment, then you just do that. Later on, you just, as an adult, that's your template of being an adult. And there may be other ways that you repudiated your upbringing. Most people try and strive to be better parents than their parents were. But, there are some old habits that die hard. And particularly when you're stressed and you feel that you are burdened by something you don't want to do, this feeling of stress and burden, when you grow up in a very negative home, this is a very constant feeling, so you probably saw your father act that way about fixing the car or mowing the lawn or like whatever, and so basically you learn that there's like one way to be like a guy doing shit work, and that is to be miserable. And you may even think that that's kind of an unspoken like rule, is that almost like you complain about shit like as you do it. Otherwise, you're some kind of idiot, that thinks that it could be fun. Because when you grow up in a very negative house, the idea of like being stupid or being like a patsy in some way, that's always like a really big idea, a really central idea, is to not be a sucker, right? So when somebody's very negative, they'll be like, well, I may be doing this stupid thing, but at least I'm not stupid enough to think that it's not a bad thing to be doing. So like positive thinking is like actively looked down on by people who are very negative and paranoid and depressed. So it seems stupid. It seems like Pollyannish or really just naive and really just stupid, to think or to try to make something that is so obviously bad into something that is good. But there is nothing that's so obviously bad, that's the thing. That painting the basement could have been like a kind of a fun thing. You and your wife could have turned on music. You could be like knocking it out. You could even have asked her to help, which you probably wouldn't do if you're used to this idea that you're suffering and that you're the perennial victim. So that's really what the woman is picking up on. And I'm sure she's not perfect either, right? But for a second, you tell yourself constantly all the shit that she's, doing wrong and what's wrong with her and whatever. So for a second, step back and look at it from a different perspective. Probably there's no woman in the world who would have responded well to you bitching and moaning about painting the basement. Maybe some, but they're like masochists or something and not in the fun way. So, you really want to address this negative, cynical worldview. And that's what these guys have usually, and that's what they were raised with. And usually when we talk about it, they say that a parent or both was like that. And they really hated it as a kid, and everything was a problem. There was always sighing and complaining, and just everything was bad, and that's an exemplification of a depressed worldview. Somebody with untreated depression who had been parented the same way is going to parent like that. And not parent, even just in general, be like that, right? So like it makes, what I think of as the father in Wonder Years, right, is like that. Like everything is kind of like a problem. He doesn't smile very much. He doesn't have very much fun. And the problems that he has with the wife, from what I remember, were around that he couldn't be flexible. Like she tried to take an art class and he wouldn't be supportive about that. She wanted them to get a new car and he wouldn't do that. And from that dynamic, she was kind of, not very difficult herself. I know it's a TV show, but this used to be like more of a familiar dynamic a couple of generations ago, was the guy would be kind of bitching and moaning and cynical and whatever, and the woman was just kind of quiet and walking on eggshells and trying not to upset him. So this is a dynamic that many of the men that I work with grew up seeing, right? So they were Kevin Arnold in this analogy. And no matter the fact that they hated it so much and they wish that the father would have been, fun and smile sometimes and do fun things, it's hard for them not to start doing this exact same way of being and these same behaviors when they themselves are in the adult male role, particularly if there is any stress. And in this case, it's the unhappy marriage stress. Now, think about it too, and I probably should do a whole podcast on this, but I talk a lot about how you should not think of the honeymoon stage. The honeymoon stage should be thought of as an increase, an artificial increase in the woman's sex drive versus that sex drive decreases after it, because then it's thought, oh, everything was going along well, and there she was, always at this high stage, and then after that, she tanked. That's not true. She was always at this low stage, really, and then the honeymoon stage artificially inflated it. Well, the honeymoon stage really does that also for the attitude of difficult and negative men. So they all of a sudden in the honeymoon phase become much more flexible and open-minded, and they're laughing and they're smiling. Then after that 1.5 to 3 years post-marriage, when certainty resolves is when the limerence stage or the infatuation stage resolves, they start to become the same jackass, really, that they grew up with, that kind of negative guy. And this isn't, a blame thing, you are struggling. If you are this guy, then your life isn't fun to you either. It's not like you're just trying to bring her down. You feel like shit painting the basement. You feel like you're being fucked, like life isn't what you had expected, like you are suffering more than average. You may well be depressed. Your father or your mother, whoever you got this from, was probably depressed as well. There's a depressive worldview with negative thoughts about self, world, and future. And if you're, always complaining and always very difficult, and always angry. Anger is a big symptom of depression in men, and always irritable, which is the same, and tired. You're probably depressed, and you really need to be talking to somebody and or possibly trying medication, at least try therapy. Try to do anything. But at least don't tell yourself that you're realistic, that like you're being realistic, life is difficult, everything sucks. Also, the one thing you should be more realistic about, though, is see the overlap between you and whichever parent acted like this. And think about how you hated it as a kid. That's probably how your wife feels now. And I'm not saying she's any picnic, but, you can't always blame, as you learn to do, your own behavior on somebody else. Yeah, she's not perfect either. But you know what? You could be getting laid a lot more, and you would still have this same upbringing, and you would be maybe 10% less of an asshole. That's the truth. And you got to think about it for real. Because if you can work on this aspect of your character of being very negative, cynical, complaining, and basically negating all the positive things you do. So if there was a video camera in the house, it would have seen you painting the basement and be like, oh, this man is like A+ husband. And then if they put up the audio, though, you would be like bitching, moaning, sighing, groaning, and it would no longer seem like an A+ husband. It would just seem like a guy who likes to suffer, And so, and to bring everybody down with him. And this isn't, again, accusatory. This is supposed to be an objective kind of look in. Who are you really to be around? Are you somebody who people want to be around that are in your home? And most guys can keep it together for work. And people really like them at work, but then sometimes that really stresses them so much to have to put on the happy face at work when they were not raised to really instinctively put on a happy face, that at home they become even more negative and cynical and critical and irritable and all of these things. So you may be doing all the right things. You may be executing all of these tasks, but you're doing it with such a negative attitude, same exact way probably, if you go back, that your parents were. They did the right things. They fed you, they clothed you, they sheltered you, they drove you to shit. But do you have positive feelings and memories about your interactions with them if they were negative people? Probably not. And that's unfortunate because they obviously busted their asses and tried as hard as they could, but there's something about their attitude was the problem. And that may be what's going on here. If you have a wife that frequently says, yeah, okay, yeah, you did the stuff, thank you, yep, because she doesn't want to overly praise it because you were so miserable about it that it brought everybody down. Another type of thing is like travel. So a lot of guys will travel, but they'll be kind of a dick about it. They don't want to be pushed outside their comfort zone, so they'll travel, but they always kind of have a bad expression on their face. Or shopping. Like, yeah, she could spend what she wants, but they're going to make a comment about it. Money, the shopping money, whatever. Or the kids, their behavior. Yeah, okay, they don't hit the kids. They don't really scream at the kids, but they make little jabs at the kids, So are they being a good dad? Yeah, they're driving here. They're doing this. They're doing that. They say, I love you. Their own father may have never said it. But are they generally being positive? Maybe not, It's hard when you've not been raised that way to just kind of flip the script, particularly if you're suffering from untreated depression, as your parent may have and as you may be currently. So if this resonates with you uncomfortably, then therapy would be a good step, and if you really, really want to be extra A+ husband in real life, then send it to your spouse, send it to your wife and say, does this sound like me more than you tell me? Am I Mr. Negative? Do I do the right things, but I do them with so little enthusiasm that it's almost like you rather I didn't do them, so I can't claim that I did them. Because that's a thing, like it's almost like you paint the basement, but every time she sees the new color of the basement, it'll be like, fuck you, you made everybody so miserable about it, etc. All right, so hopefully this gave you stuff to think about, as I always aim to do. And it is a good one for you to share with your spouse. It won't go over so well if you're sharing it the other direction, the wife to the husband. But if you're the husband asking your wife if this is you, then it could go over well. All right, I'll talk to everybody soon. Have a great day.